Yo, what is good, yo? It's your boy Tom back here with another video. And in this video today, we're going to not be doing anything to do with 2K. We're going to talk about the NBA draft, which is upcoming this weekend. My favorite squad, the Minnesota Timberwolves, have a big day. We're going to be here with my brother Nate. He knows a lot more about all of these draft prospects than I do. Nate, say what's up.
Yeah, I love the NBA draft. It's honestly outside of March Madness, like the selection show in the first couple days. It's probably my favorite day of the year.
And so obviously the Timberwolves got a big pick with the first pick in the NBA draft. Nate, obviously if the Timberwolves do, select somebody, their needs are power forward, small forward, shooting guard. What are your kind of thoughts with what the Timberwolves do with this pick?
So I've actually been, you know me, like I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, especially when you combine it with the Timberwolves. I've been doing lots of research. And I have no idea where they're going to go, but the signs are definitely pointing to LaMelo or Anthony Edwards. And I'm having a very strong hunch if they do stay at one, they'll take LaMelo Ball. Just from what I'm hearing in the workouts they've conducted and all that.
And I'm not as into it as Nate, but just from what I've heard, that's where I think they will go as well if they do keep the number one pick. So it'll be interesting if they do take LaMelo Ball, what will happen with everything. But I think he's a very, very intriguing prospect. So hopping into the second pick in the NBA draft, we do get to the Golden State Warriors, and the front court for the Warriors is pretty bare. So what are your kind of thoughts with the Golden State Warriors, Nate?
And with the Warriors, I feel like it's been clear cut if they do stay at two. Obviously, I think they're still trying to move it, but from the reports I've seen on what Golden State wants to do, it seems like James Wiseman's the obvious pick. Now, it's also rumored that Charlotte likes James Wiseman, so you could potentially see them trade from 3 to 1 and swap with Minnesota, and then Minnesota would take who's ever left between Edwards and Ball. Or if Golden State was to take neither of them, they would have their pick there, but. Yeah, they're going to go Wiseman here if he's available.
And that's another thing. Like, the trades could totally throw all of this off. But I think Wiseman does fit in good with the Warriors' needs, obviously. And at the third spot, let's say Wiseman is gone. Charlotte, they need a lot. So what are you thinking if you're Charlotte, Nate?
If you're Charlotte, I think, it's like I said, Charlotte really likes Wiseman from what I'm hearing. I hear they really like Okongwu too, but I think if you're Charlotte here, you just gotta take the best player available, and they could really use anything, honestly. So I think Edwards is pretty obvious as the kind of the third of the big trio that kind of seems to have separated themselves.
And when you say trio, that's exactly right. Those three seem pretty clear cut above the rest. And yeah, Charlotte, looking at their roster, they don't have much. And I'm not trying to put down anybody on Charlotte, but they have to take the best available prospect in Anthony Edwards left over. I mean, he, in my opinion, is the best that there is left at that number 3 spot. Now, number 4 is the Chicago Bulls. And, I mean, outside of Zach LaVine, same kind of thing with Chicago. Pretty bare looking at their roster. Where are you leaning if you're Chicago?
So, I'm not sure. Chicago, I'm not sure where they go because this is kind of where it gets kind of interesting. We're in this kind of weird range here. I will say this. I am personally not as high on Avidja as a lot of people are. I think he's a bit overhyped. From what I've seen, there's nothing that really impresses me. He doesn't have any skill that really impresses me. He shot really poorly from the free throw line. Even though he shot decent from 3, that's very, very scary that he shot that poorly from the free throw line to me. And so for me, I don't know. Maybe Chicago does like him, but for me, and if you want to chime in, let me know. But I think I'd go Obi Toppin.
You think Obi would be a good fit in Chicago? Kind of explain your reasoning for the Obi Toppin pick. Just kind of compare it to let's say an Okoro or a Okongwu.
I mean, it's like you're saying, you could go any way you wanted to here, but for me, I think Toppin is the next best prospect in this draft. So that's where I'm kind of like with Chicago. I think I've always been more of take the best player available, and they got LaVine, who's obviously, but other than that, they don't really have anyone on that next level with LaVine. So in my opinion, you take the best player available top, and he could fit wherever you wanted him to at the 4 or the 5. Which, I mean, they have some decent young bigs, but plug him right in there in the starting lineup.
And it's important to remember how good Obi Toppin was in college. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that he should be a top 3 pick necessarily, but as far as a complete player, he is up there. So now, if Obi does go number 4 with the number 5 pick for, again, a very incomplete team in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and outside of Colin Sexton, they don't have too much. So what are you thinking for Cleveland?
So with Cleveland, you're right. They really don't. It's the same thing. You know, a lot of these guys at the top of the draft, it's just you got to take your best player or your best prospect available. So in Cleveland's situation, it's basically, well, who is that for us? Got 2 young guards in Sexton and Garland, and they also got Porter Jr. as well. So it just kind of depends where they want to lean. If I was them, because this is like, if I'm basically just going to take the best player available or the best prospect available, and right now, after what we have on the board left, in my opinion, is Tyrese Haliburton. But they could still go Avidja. They still could go Okoro, and even go Okongwu.
The only problem I see with Haliburton in this situation is because you mentioned the young guards. If you look at their front court, like Caleb, Drummond, Tristan Thompson, like, none of those guys, not to say those guys are bad, but they don't fit they're just complete opposite compared to the guards. The guards are all young, emerging prospect, while the bigs aren't, you know. And so for me, maybe if I'm Cleveland, I look at a forward, maybe even possibly a big man. Do you think that has any impact on their selection here?
I think that does make a lot of sense, because you're right. They already got 2 young point guards, and Haliburton is a point guard. I guess I can see Haliburton it's coming in a positionless league, and Haliburton's 6'5", but I guess I can see that, which they could easily take a Okoro here or Avidja or Okongwu, like I was saying before.
And I get it. Like, I've seen Haliburton play plenty in college because I'm from Iowa and he went to Iowa State. But just kind of the guards, I feel like if I'm Cleveland in this situation, I'm leaning maybe more towards a forward in Okoro or Onyeka Okongwu.
So, I mean, we can go with one of those as well. You want to go with Okoro? I think Okoro would fit in good.
I think Okoro would.
A defensive-minded wing.
Exactly, because I mean, with Cleveland, not to say Haliburton needs the ball, because he doesn't. But you got a lot of guys that for Cleveland, that Garland or Sexton that need the ball. So I think Okoro fits in good with this Cleveland Cavalier roster. And then next up, we got the Atlanta Hawks here. Okay, I was looking at something different. So the Atlanta Hawks here, another interesting team, because the Hawks have been rumored to try to make a push towards the playoffs, and who knows what they'll do with this pick. But let's say, keeping this pick, where would you lean if you are the Atlanta Hawks?
Oh, I definitely don't think they go for a Okongwu. I just can't see the fit next to Capella with him. He could, though, but I feel like they would lean either Avidja or Haliburton. I don't know, like I'm saying, outside of like the top couple of teams, I'm not really sure how a lot of these guys have performed in workouts for these teams and which teams are high on them. Mm-hmm. But I think Avidja, I'm not high on him. I would not take him 6th. I actually have him a lot lower on my personal board. But I mean, they could look. I don't think they go point guard with Killian Hayes either. So I think you either go Avidja or Haliburton.
And just because it kind of, again, the team fits. I mean, with the Hawks, they're a little bit different because they got Trae Young, obviously, who, you know, at the point guard position is going to see 36-plus minutes. But they also got guys like a young DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, even John Collins, Kevin Huerter. They've got some young pieces, some young guards, some young forwards. And so it's kind of tough because if you're Atlanta, I think you got to take the best prospect. But like you said, with Capella and Onyeka, it's kind of a tough situation. So I don't really know where I would go with if I am Atlanta here.
I think the more I think about it, the more I think Haliburton makes sense, because I feel like outside of Trae Young, they don't have another go-to ball handler at all.
I mean, when I watched Atlanta last year, that guy was Kevin Huerter. That's who it was, and so I do think Tyrese Haliburton does make sense here with the number 6 pick. Hopping into the number 7th pick, maybe, I don't want to say these guys are, the Detroit Pistons are terrible. Okay, they're terrible. So I mean, again, a lot of early on picks. It is the best prospect, and I think it is again here for Detroit.
Agreed. And they could really use anything. And we don't know if Christian Wood's going to be back for them either. He was their best player at the end of the year. So you got to take the best prospect. And my top 2 prospects on the board right now currently are Killian Hayes and Onyeka Okongwu.
And I think that Onyeka Okongwu makes sense with this pick. Do you agree? I mean, looking at the current roster, if they lose Christian Wood, I don't know.
To me, Hayes makes more sense. They can give the ball to Killian Hayes and basically say, we're giving you the keys this year. Do whatever you want. Not do whatever you want, but basically we're gonna give you the ball and we're gonna have you at a high usage rate and try to just have you grow in the NBA in that way, because they're not gonna win next year, so they can just take time to develop him, I guess.
No, I definitely understand that, because they need a ball dominant player with this roster. They do, and it's not it's bad. So although I do think Onyeka would fit here, I agree with you on Killian Hayes at number 7. And as you guys can see, the number 4 and 5 guys on the big board are still left here at pick number 8 for another awful team in the New York Knicks.
And I look at the board here, right, and I think Hayes would have been a great pick for the Knicks. I think that's where they would go. But with who we have left, I'm not exactly sure.
And the problem I see with the Knicks is I just feel like they've tried that over and over. Like with RJ Barrett, even with Dennis Smith Jr., they traded for him. It's like they've tried and it's like nothing's worked for them. And I don't want to say RJ Barrett can't work out, and obviously he's an off guard and not a point guard, but he needs his shots, and I just feel like, I don't know. The Knicks they've been bad. Like, they've had bad, I don't want to say bad luck, but they've missed on some chances.
Right. And I think when you think about the Knicks, you think, well, what are the Knicks? I think the Knicks would want a point guard. When you look at who we have left, don't have Kira Lewis Jr. is a guy that's been climbing draft boards and impressing a lot of people. So maybe the Knicks could go him. He's ranked 16th on here, but he's been climbing boards. I know a lot of teams in the top 10 really like him. I think you go Avidja. I think you go one of those two guys. I don't think they take Okongwu. Maybe they do. Just don't see how he meshes. They already have young Mitchell Robinson there, and I feel like Okongwu doesn't fit that roster either.
The problem is, Nate, I don't really think anybody fits this roster. And I've even been talking, the Knicks just have a terribly built roster as a whole. And that's it, all I can really say. So maybe they go Avidja, maybe they, I don't know. I'm at a loss of words with this roster. So what are you thinking?
I think maybe they go Kira Lewis Jr. I know he's 16 on this board. I think he's a little. I think teams are higher on him than that, though. I think the Knicks really want a point guard, and now that Killian Hayes is off the board, maybe they go next guy.
And this is
in my opinion, is Kira Lewis.
And this is just if the Knicks do hold this pick and don't trade it up, down, whatever. And so Kira Lewis Jr. taken 8th to the New York Knicks. The 9th pick is the Washington Wizards. And this is a little different, I think, because John Wall is coming back. You got Bradley Beal. So the guard play, I feel like, isn't as big of a concern.
Oh, you're right. You're exactly right there. And I don't know how to feel about John Wall, but he looks like he's doing pretty well. Obviously, it's hard to know until we actually see him in a game. And so you have your two lead guards. I think that if I'm Washington, I know exactly what I want to do here, and I want to take Onyeka Okongwu because they don't have a young center yet, and he'd be a perfect big next to those guys, especially a guy that can switch screens hopefully in the NBA and defend the perimeter at a high level. I think that's very invaluable.
You really hate Thomas Bryant, but anyways,
Thomas Bryant is not it.
Even if you look at the whole roster, right? John Wall, Bradley Beal, and then you got guys like Rui Hachimura, a young forward. You got guys like who was I looking at? Troy Brown Jr. in the bubble played very well. And so you got some decent forwards as well. And so I do agree with you that Onyeka Okongwu is a very, very good fit. And the crazy thing is the number 4 guy on this board is still here at number 10 with a in my opinion, the most complete team we've seen so far, the Phoenix Suns.
The Suns are definitely a contending team, and they've been not a contending team, but a contending playoff team, I guess you could say. and they're going to be looking. I mean, we've already seen the news about them wanting to make a trade possibly to put Chris Paul next to Devin Booker, maybe another player. And now, if they do hold this spot, I think this is about where I would have Avidja go in the draft, and I think he makes a lot of sense here. I mean, I know people like to use the cliche to compare European players, but Avidja could easily step in and replace kind of a Dario Saric type role there if the Suns do let Saric walk this offseason.
And yeah,
but they could also. I mean, we saw what they did last year with Cam Johnson. So maybe they like a player like Cam Johnson. They go with just a 3-and-D guy like Devin Vassell. But I think if Avidja was the fall of the Suns, I think he makes a lot of sense.
And I agree. I mean, the Phoenix Suns are in a position that they don't. I feel like they don't need any certain position. And obviously the forward position, in my opinion, is probably where they're leaning. Power forward, center maybe even, but. I do agree Avidja is a very good fit. I shouldn't say very good fit, but who Phoenix will roll with. Next is an interesting team, especially with the DeMar DeRozan speculation here. With the 11th pick with the San Antonio Spurs.
The Spurs are I think I said it last year too. They're just in a weird spot where they're just gonna if they keep the roster the way there is, they're gonna be about this 11th pick again next year. So we'll see. Are they going to tear it down? LaMarcus Aldridge rumors to the Warriors. DeMar DeRozan rumors to the Lakers. Are they going to tear it down, or are they going to keep these pieces here? I think if they do decide to tear it down, maybe they're going to want a young player with maybe a high ceiling. But if I'm them, I just take the best prospect available.
And in this situation with Patrick Williams, Devin Vassell, even Precious on the boards, who do you think is the best prospect in this situation?
This is kind of where I'm not exactly sure. Where I like Aaron Nesmith a lot. I like Devin Vassell a lot. I also like, if you look down at 18, I'm not exactly sure to pronounce his name. I'm pretty sure his last name is something like Pakuchevsky. He's a 7-foot point forward from Serbia. And we know the Spurs, they like to draft, they like their foreign prospects, and he's a building block that you could see go a little bit higher than he's projected. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically a guessing game for me right now. I would probably lean Vassell. I just think he's the best prospect left.
Gotcha. And it's just the San Antonio Spurs, like you said, it's just an interesting roster because they just looking up and down the roster, you know what you're going to get if they don't tear it down. And you know that it's not going to be where Spurs fans want. And so it'll just be interesting to see what happens with this roster as a whole. Sacramento Kings, another just mess with the 12th pick. I don't even know where to start with this roster.
I feel like they could use a guy next to Marvin Bagley, kind of. I mean, we saw Bielitsa this year, but I feel like they could use an upgrade there, or even another wing player, possibly like a small forward type
like
player.
A Harrison Barnes type.
So what I'm seeing is I see a guy that makes a lot of sense on the not necessarily Harrison Barnes type. I'm thinking more of a guy who can defend multiple positions. This is one of the guys who have been climbed. I think Patrick Williams, that you see right at the top. I think he's basically a perfect fit. I don't know a whole lot about him. He's one of the prospects I've studied the least, but I know he's been climbing draft boards a ton. A lot of people have compared him to OG Anunoby, and I think that would be a great player for an OG Anunoby type player would be a great fit in Sacramento. Just a guy who can defend.
Sacramento, they talk about defense. They don't have a lot of it. And so, Patrick Williams, I don't know basically anything about him, but with what you're saying compared to OG, I think he would be a very good fit in Sacramento. Talk about another team that needs a little defense, the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, I don't want to sit here and bash New Orleans Pelicans because they got a lot going for them, but at the same time, they need something as well. And a lot of Drew Holiday rumors have been floating around. What are you thinking if you are New Orleans?
I think they need a guy kind of to replace Drew Holiday. I mean, Redick's getting up there in age. He's another kind of two guard. Mm-hmm. So they got Ball and Ingram as their 1 and their 3, but who's going to be the 2? I think that question needs to be answered. They got Alexander Walker, of course, who had an up and down rookie year.
Yep.
I don't think they go center because they still have young Jackson Hayes. So I think they take a wing prospect probably here. And there's a guy on the board that I think makes a lot of sense in Aaron Nesmith or even a Sadiq Bey.
Looking at this roster, I think Nesmith and what I've heard about him, I know a little bit more about him than some of these other guys on the board. And it's just is the problem with New Orleans is if they do in fact get rid of Jrue Holiday, it's defensively this team's going to be a disaster. But I mean, I agree with Aaron Nesmith as a good fit in New Orleans. Boston has a very intriguing draft, to say the least. They got the 14th pick, 26th pick, and 30th pick with a very good roster coming back. What are you thinking if you're Boston?
Boston, but the one thing I've been saying for a while is they need wing depth. They need wing depth off the bench. I mean, especially if the Hayward's not back next year, they're going to need even more because their wing depth's not. I mean, Ojeley's not that good. Tremont Waters was the rookie of the year in the G League, so maybe he can provide some guard depth for him. But for me, I think a pretty safe player would be Saddiq Bey, kind of the Aaron Nesmith mold. Just a good 3-and-D guy who you can plug and play off the bench. And he's a guy who can play now. You know, he's not going to take years to develop like possibly a Tyrese Maxey could.
Exactly, and it's like Boston obviously is in a competitive type mindset as well, and I agree with Saddiq Bey. I truly do, because nothing against Ojeley, but there's like you said, the depth, especially if Hayward it doesn't in fact come back. Saddiq Bey is a very good fit in Boston. Next pick out of the lottery, we do got the Orlando Magic. Another kind of, I don't know. Orlando is just so mid. I don't know how to describe their team makeup. I mean, you got young guys like Markelle Fultz, but you got a guy like Vooch as well. And I don't know. What are you thinking if you were Orlando?
I have no idea, to be completely honest. Orlando's a team I'm not very knowledgeable about. You know, I obviously know their roster, but don't watch them play a lot. I mean, they got. So who are the young guys that they have already? They got Fultz, they got Isaac.
Who knows if Jonathan Isaac's gonna play? I mean, right. Sadly, as sad as it is, because he had such an upside, but he's another guy you just don't know, and then I don't know.
I feel like they probably go guard, point guard or off guard though. I think R.J. Hampton. I think he can make a lot of sense here. Especially with he's 6'5", so he can play next to Fultz.
Mm-hmm. And it's just Orlando's just a mess as a whole. Even watching them in the bubble, they're just not a very intriguing team to watch. So R.J. Hampton goes with the Orlando Magic. Next team is another intriguing team. We're gonna start saying that a lot more with all of the better teams we're getting to. The 16th pick goes to the Portland Trail Blazers. Well, here is an interesting one where I feel like their backcourt they're fine, and in the front court. Not to say it's a complete mess, but it's a mess. Especially at the forward position more than anything.
Don't know where they're going to go here, but I feel like they got two young guards already backing up Simons and Trent. So I think you're right, kind of a forward, kind of like a 6'8" guy who can play the 4 or the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of back up Zach Collins possibly and Carmelo, so maybe they could use some defense too. So maybe they go Precious.
And Precious is a guy I don't know much about. So like that, I didn't know. Go ahead.
The problem I have with it though is I feel like they're kind of in a win now mode. I mean, a lot of these teams are going to be in win now mode that we're getting down to here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of, I feel like Precious is kind of a rebuilding project on the offensive end. You're taking a risk on a guy that has high upside.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, we've seen even when the Trailblazers have been good, they've taken guys who they need that have a lot of potential. Taking Nazir Little, for example, who slipped, or Anfernee Simons, who was right out of high school. So I can see them definitely taking Precious Achiuwa here.
Awesome. The Timberwolves once again. The 17th pick, and it's going to be interesting. I don't think they hold on to both these picks, but if they do in fact, so they go LaMelo with number 1. Obviously at this point the guard play isn't that much of a concern in my opinion. If you got deloading and LaMelo, I think they're looking at probably a power forward type player, and listen, you know where I would go, but what are your thoughts with this pick, Nate?
So I think Minnesota, I know the guys they've worked out have not been any of these guys left really. They've been, they've been trying to move up from this 17th pick, I know. And I'm not exactly sure where they would go here.
What are your thoughts on Jalen Smith with this pick? I know Jalen Smith is one of the guys in that draft that I'm super super high on. I think he is going to be a very very good player. What are your thoughts on him with this pick in Minnesota?
I feel like it's a possibility, but I also have drawbacks because if the Timberwolves were to draft him, we know the type of four the Timberwolves like to have, and that's not a Jalen Smith type player. They like a guy who can kind of handle the ball, and they kind of like a small ball four. So you're like, okay, maybe he's a backup five. Well, then where does Naz Reid fit in?
Fair. That's fair enough. Fair enough. But the one thing I do like about Jalen is his ability to stretch the floor. I get, obviously handling the ball isn't necessarily there. He can knock down shots. Defensively, he's a pretty good rim protector, and so I don't know. I feel like compared to everybody else here, I don't know where else they would go. I don't know enough about a lot of these guys like you probably do.
I think I'm fine taking Jalen Smith, but it's like I don't see the perfect prospect on the board. I can see them taking Jalen Smith, though. I definitely can.
If I'm the Timberwolves, if they have this pick with these guys left, I would want them to take Jalen Smith. So that's who I'm going to go with. With the 18th pick, the Dallas Mavericks. And the Mavs have they have an interesting roster. Did Porzingis, is he going to be healthy? He got surgery, didn't he, Nate?
Yes, correct.
And so
but I'm pretty sure he's going to recover fairly quickly.
When I watched Dallas last year, I don't want to say it was just it was weird, but here's the thing with Dallas. Sometimes DeLon Wright would play 25 minutes, sometimes he would play 4 minutes. Sometimes Seth Curry would play a bunch of their rotation was just it was a mess. I mean, there's no consistency, and so I don't know where they go. I don't know if they go with somebody in the backcourt, somebody in the front court. What are you thinking with Dallas?
Dallas, I'm just going to follow a trend, and I feel like this guy slipped too far for my liking. We know Dallas likes their foreign guys. We know that they got Dirk, they have Luka now. They have a lot of other foreign guys on their roster. And I really like Pokusevski a lot. And I know they're not necessarily in rebuilding mode, but if this guy becomes what he could become, or he could be out of the league in a couple years, we don't know what that is. But I think a guy who's 7 foot can handle the ball, and with the way we've seen Dallas draft in the past, I would take Pokusevski here. That would be my guess if this was who was left on the board.
Okay, so then we go to the 19th pick with the Brooklyn Nets, who the Brooklyn Nets are going to be good next year. Like, they are going to be good next year, but their front court needs some help.
Yeah, to an extent. I don't know if it really needs help. They have a couple guys
that can play the forward too. Yeah, I mean,
they have DeJordan, they have Allen, and it's a positionless league. Torian Prince. They could use some backup wing depth though, possibly, but I think we're getting kind of to the point in the draft where you're just taking the best guy kind of, and you kind of do that fit. But most of these guys now, I mean, are you really expecting them to contribute right away?
I mean, probably not. But if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you're going to want somebody that's going to contribute, don't you think?
Any team does.
But compare the Brooklyn Nets compared to I guess if we're this late in the draft, I mean, most of these teams are going to be pretty competitive.
Right. And so I look at who's left. Josh Green, I'm not extremely high on. McDaniels, I don't know much about Leandro Bolmaro. I haven't done much research on him. Maybe they go Tyrese Maxey or Cole Anthony. I would lean more Maxey. I think Maxey slipped a little bit here, so I think maybe you just take Tyrese Maxey.
Okay.
Looking at who's below that, and I don't really see anything else who I would take over Maxey.
Definitely. And so a champion, a team that made the championship last year in the Miami Heat, obviously, very, very, they're solid all around. They truly, truly are. And led by Jimmy Butler, obviously, Bam. They got some other pieces as well. What are you thinking if you are the Miami Heat?
Miami's got a really, really good young core already. I think when you look at what they need the most, it's probably like versatile 4, a guy that could play the 3 or the 4. They could even use a 5, possibly to come off the bench to back up Bam, because we saw them play just without a center a lot of the time. And Bam was injured.
Because they didn't
so maybe they go, actually, maybe they go with a guy with kind of Bam's archetype in Jaden McDaniels, a guy who can defend multiple positions and an extremely good defender. The younger brother of Jalen McDaniels on the Hornets as well.
I feel like we're getting to the point where a lot of these, I feel like a lot of the teams need that kind of versatile 4 or that power 4 position. When with the Heat, I agree completely. You know, looking at the guard play, they got Jimmy, Gordon, Dragic. I mean, you saw in the playoffs when Dragic was healthy, they had a guy in Kendrick Nunn who didn't even see the court. And we all know how good Kendrick Nunn can be at times. And so I agree. I think at the forward position, Jaden McDaniels is a very good fit. Next here, we do get the 76ers, and there's been a lot of rumors of what's going to happen with their squad. And for the 76ers, again, team needs a power forward position. What are you thinking for the 76ers?
Necessarily see the power forward position as they just got so many guys. I mean, Ben Simmons can basically run power forward. They can run so much. Their lineups can be so versatile because of him.
Yes, it's good.
And now they got Daryl Morey in the front office. And when I think about Daryl Morey, they go same thing as kind of, you know, we see with Rosas. It's kind of a star hunting approach. And there's a guy on the board there's one guy left who you would say, the guy at the top there that you could say, okay, maybe he's a star. I'm not as high on Cole Anthony as a lot of people are. But with that being said, I think I could see the Sixers, Daryl Morey taking Cole Anthony. And the Sixers could use, yeah, they have Shake Milton. He can Shake Milton 6'6", so you could run him with Cole Anthony, and they could use a scoring guard. I mean, we saw they had they traded for Alec Burks, and they really didn't have any much scoring off the bench in the backcourt anyway, besides for Korkmaz, who I don't really even know if you call him a scoring guard.
The big thing with the 76ers is they've got a lot of these positionless players. Look at Toby Harris, Ben Simmons, and even a guy like Josh Richardson. They got a lot of guys that are versatile, and so that's the thing. They don't really have a certain position that they necessarily need. So Cole Anthony, I could definitely see going here. Another interesting team, the Denver Nuggets. Very, very impressive in the playoffs as well. Where are you looking at for Denver?
Denver was very, very impressive. And now even for me, we're kind of getting to the point of the draft where I'm kind of not as knowledgeable about these players, even really as close to as where we were. Because after the Timberwolves' first 2 picks, I kind of stopped researching prospects. So now I guess we look at kind of what has been their draft patterns. Where are they at right now, and what type of player do they need? They have so much depth.
And that's the tough question, because Jeremy Grant, obviously nobody knows what's going to happen with him. But they got MPJ. They got a guy even like, Will Barton, Gary Harris. It's just, I feel like at the guard position, obviously you can say in the playoffs they weren't necessarily that strong there, but it's important to remember Barton was not active. So where do you I don't know. I feel like, again, you just got to take what's with the best available player. I hate seeing another guard go to Denver, though. I just hate it because it's like I could not see another guard getting any playing time.
You're right. It's gonna take time to develop if they do want to go that route. Maybe they take a center. Best center on the board as Isaiah Stewart. You could take a Udoka Azubuike, Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? This is a guy who's been kind of shooting up draft boards, and he makes sense as the type of player. Denver's been extremely good at drafting. I feel like this guy has been shooting up draft boards. You see him at 34 there. He's a very smart, heady player who can shoot the ball, and he's an extremely good playmaker, can defend. He's just very versatile. And we know Denver has a lot of versatile wings on their roster, so maybe they go Desmond Bane. He's been shooting up draft boards. I've heard very good things about him.
He was a senior, so I mean, and the thing is, Denver is going to try to be in win now mode. They are. I know a lot of these teams are, but if they can if they can just find somebody that can fit a role, that is what they're going to look for. So Utah here, I hate to say it, but another team with a lot of, I feel like, ball dominant players. You got Conley, you got Clarkson, you got a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Where do you? I feel like at the forward position, obviously they got Bogdanovic as well as Joe Royce. I don't know. I feel like another pretty complete team here in Utah. What are you thinking if you are the Jazz?
Maybe they just take a 3-and-D wing. Maybe they want another Royce O'Neal type player. So maybe they take a Josh Green as a 3-and-D wing, or maybe they take Tyler Bay, another guy who's having that 3-and-D mold.
And for Utah specifically, who do you think fits in their roster better between Josh Green and Tyler Bay?
I'll just say it's like I was kind of saying, this is kind of to the point where I'm kind of not near as knowledgeable. So more people seem to be higher on Josh Green. Let me just trust the experts. Let's just take Josh Green.
Now we got the Milwaukee Bucks up here in another, I hate to say this, another team that is a very, very competitive team. Now, there have been some rumors about Eric Bledsoe, in the Bucks parting ways and some stuff like that. But I feel like the Bucks, they are going to be a solid once again next season.
I think maybe they take a veteran guy, maybe a backup point guard to Bledsoe, and kind of have DiVincenzo run more of a 2-guard, and maybe they go Cassius Winston or a Trey Jones. I really like Trey Jones a lot. I know he's kind of down pretty high on this board, but he's a lot better shooter than Tyus. So he's gonna be a smart player he's a plug and play guy right away.
Do you think between Trey Jones and Cassius Winston, which one's more plug him in already?
I think it's Trey Jones.
Next, we got the OKC Thunder, and a team that honestly surprised a lot of people last year, even was close to making some noise in the playoffs. And again, obviously, Dennis Schroeder, a lot of room. Actually, he's gone, right? Is that official? Dennis Schroeder's gone, right?
Yeah, the trade just can't be officially completed until tomorrow, but it's official, basically.
So Dennis is gone, which, I mean, makes sense for the Thunder, to be honest with you.
When you look at OKC, I think you gotta keep drilling home this point where they need wing depth. We saw it in the playoffs. They needed wing depth, and you can never have enough wing depth. At SGA, I don't know if they're gonna try. They'll probably try to make him into a lead ball handler next year. I guess they could possibly use another point guard, but either way, I just think they need a guard in general. And it just becomes, well, who do you think they want at guard? I feel like maybe they look at a guy like Malachi Flynn. Kind of an older guy, but a guy that I've heard a lot of good things about, and a lot of people think he could be a surprise at draft. Maybe they go with the foreign route with Balmero, Maladon. I'm not super knowledgeable about either of those players in particular. So maybe they go Nico Mannion. Just kind of depends what they would want.
Definitely, and I don't know a ton about any of these guys, but just looking at the Thunder and kind of what I think a guy like Balmero would fit maybe better as kind of not necessarily a primary ball handler when you look at him compared to the other 2 point guards.
That makes a lot of sense. And especially his height.
Definitely.
I think a 6'7" guy who can handle the ball and run pick and roll. I mean, like I said, I'm not super knowledgeable about them, but
definitely, for sure. And then back to Boston, like I said, they've got a very interesting draft if they do obviously hold on to all of these pieces. And so Boston, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this roster with Gordon Hayward as well as everybody else. What are you thinking if you're Boston in this situation here?
I think Boston, you do the same thing. You have Saddiq Bey. All right, we got Saddiq Bey now. How about we get another guy, another versatile guy who can kind of play on the wing? I think that's the route they go. Maybe I actually really like Malachi Flynn here. Maybe because you can play him on the ball, you can play him off the ball, and he's a guy who can come right in, a veteran player. A very, very talented offensive weapon.
I don't mind Malachi in this situation at all. I watched him a little bit in college, and I think for Boston, he has a chance to step in and play a role. And now we're back to the New York Knicks after taking Lewis Jr. with that 8th pick. And again, they could use everything.
Yeah, and whenever I think of the Knicks, I don't know why it is. I feel like I gotta draft a player who's gotta draft a guy kind of like a star hunting type player, if that makes sense.
I
I feel
feel
like they're
I feel like that's what's just gonna
big
keep.
name,
I feel like that's what's just
whatever.
gonna keep getting these Knicks in trouble. But with that star hunting player, who do you think is the highest? Who has the highest ceiling?
So a guy who's really not super high. I saw him earlier. I'm trying to find him. Oh yeah, he's ranked as the 49th best prospect. He broke Zion Williamson's vertical record at Duke, and there's some people who are saying, oh, watch out. Maybe if this kid develops, he could be a star. And I think when you look at a guy who's that athletic and who can shoot the ball and Cassius Stanley, I think those two skills are
Definitely.
two big skills to have when you train to go to the NBA.
Definitely
if you can shoot at a decent rate and you're super athletic.
Definitely, and he's obviously you can tell he's a freshman. He's young, and for the Knicks, they're in no rush at all to find that piece to help them out. Now we got the Lakers, and we know the Lakers.
This is the Thunder. This
will be. Yep. You're right. So another OKC pick, and I mean OKC. What are you thinking here? Who do we take with the last pick for OKC?
Took Balmero. And so now I think they maybe go with a wing here. You know, we already know their wing depth's kind of lacking. Tyler Bay might be a guy that they look to, a junior out of Colorado. Not necessarily the highest ceiling, but a guy who can shoot the ball. He's a good defender and just a fairly safe player who you can plug and play right next into Gilgeous-Alexander and then try to develop a guy like Balmero with him as well.
Definitely fits. I feel like fits in with that Thunder roster pretty good in Tyler Bay. Raptors here, obviously Fred VanVleet. What's the story with him?
I think he's probably gone, but he could be back. He wants to get paid. I know that.
Yeah,
whoever gives him the most amount of money is probably going to get him. I know. He said that he's not like for sure gone from Toronto. He said if they offer the right price, but he wants to get paid, and rightfully so. I mean. Deserves it. He deserves it.
So this Raptors roster could look completely different because Serge Ibaka. Any news? Do you know anything about him either?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I think it's kind of the same thing.
Same thing. Gotcha. And so the Raptors. I mean, I feel like are one of the teams that they don't necessarily need one position more than another position. Do you agree? Like just all around, as best prospect for him. And I don't know. One guy I'm super high on compared to a lot of people is Tyrell Terry. Now, I don't know exactly if this is the spot for him. Then you got a guy maybe like Nico still is on the board. Where are you leaning if you're the Raptors?
I like Tyrell Terry a lot. I actually forgot about him until you said that, and I saw him down at 38.
I feel like
I know a lot of other teams have liked him, so I'm surprised he's this low.
And when I saw him at 38, I was kind of surprised that he's that low, but I don't know. He's actually a guy that when I played AAU, saw him in person, and he would look. He might not look like an NBA player with his weight and stuff because he's super skinny. But I think with the right development, he can be super solid in the NBA.
I think that'd be a good pick. I think point guard would be a good pick, especially if they lose VanVleet. They're gonna need some type of point guard. And obviously Terry might not be the guy that comes in and gives them depth. They'd probably rather sign someone, but you can never have enough point guard depth.
Definitely agree. So with Boston, obviously here at the 30th pick, they already got Saddiq Bey, Malachi Flynn, and a very complete roster. What are you thinking for Boston?
So with Boston, I think you kind of go with that same mold. Who's a guy who we can get who could possibly plug and play as a wing player? And the guy right at the top there, and Theo Maledon, I think he's a guy who I maybe should have picked a little bit earlier. It's just these foreign guys you never know. A superb shooter, a great free throw shooter. Outside of that, I don't really know a whole lot about him, but point guard, so a fairly good playmaker. Let's see, he averaged 3.1 assists last year and just 1.9 turnovers. So not bad there while playing in the EuroLeague. So I think he could be a fairly safe plug and play player.
The thing about it is he's 6'5", 6'9" wingspan, so it's not like he's a Cassius Winston at 6'1". He's got some height to him and can maybe play alongside another point guard as well. So welcome him to the squad. So with the NBA draft being on Wednesday, these are Nate and I's predictions for the mock draft. Obviously, a lot of this can change pretty quickly with the trades, with anything like that. But I know I'm super excited for Wednesday, as the Timberwolves have a very big day, and I hope you guys are excited too. But these are kind of Nate's thoughts more than mine, because he knows more about it. But kind of, I pitched it a little bit here, especially with a guy like Terry, and some other guys that I'm at least a little bit knowledgeable about. But comment your thoughts down below. Who did we miss out on in the first round? Who should have been higher? Who should have been lower? Let us know that, guys. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, man, I love you guys, and have a blessed day.